we started to calculate that if we freed up 1 hour of productivity for unpaid work for working women, it's $1 trillion of GDP per year. 1 hour per day. So you pause here and you say, okay, well, yeah, I'm coming up with some sexy virtual system, but I'm really doing this because it's also helping women again overall and families to be more productive.
Welcome to The Market Makers, the podcast where we speak with the leaders, innovators, and visionaries shaping the future of business and technology. I am your host, Lenore Beirne, and the founder and managing partner of Bright Ventures. And today's episode is a very special bonus feature from Bright Ventures' 2024 annual meeting in October. In this special episode, I was honored to be joined by Sheila Lirio Marcelo. Sheila was the founder and CEO of Care.com and now has gone on to found Ojai. Sheila has recognized the gaps in child and family care in our country, and she has innovated brilliantly to fill that gap. In this chat, you'll hear Sheila and I discuss the gaps that created opportunities for both Care.com and her new company, Ojai, and how Bright Ventures came to invest in Ojai. You'll also get some special leadership lessons from Sheila's storied career. Let's dive in. Sheila, thank you for being with us. Absolutely. Please introduce us to Ojai. We can hear that you could go anywhere. Why Ojai? Tell us more about what it is.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of slides I wanted to share. Basically the story is I had sold Care.com February 2020, gone on sabbatical, and then February last year, we were developing an ed tech course teaching blockchain and then generative AI, and had to actually start to develop the course even before ChatGPT. So when I came back from India through the ed tech platform, the team showed me generative AI as an intermediate course to complete tasks for developers. And so I looked at them and I said, wait, well, can't we use the generative AI to complete tasks for families instead? And so we quickly, after that idea, the team got excited about it. We interviewed 200 members. We launched a fake website called Amy just to kind of get a sense of demand. Mm-hmm. And then it just went through the roof. People wanted help right away. And it was positioned as a virtual assistant that helped with what we call everyday life coordination. And then we quickly launched the alpha in August. We launched the beta in January. We're about to lift beta. We went out of stealth earlier this year, and it's just growing. So we're super excited about really servicing families. So maybe this is the use case.
Yeah, and I'll just interject here. This is when I knew that I needed to pay attention to this product. I saw this image and went, oh yeah, that's my life. This is my life. It is coordination. It is scheduling. It is coming home from a very long day of work and realizing that there's a tremendous amount to coordinate with Paul about what we have to do tomorrow. And I 100% trusted Sheila to build a solution for it. Appreciate the resonance and for you seeing me, Sheila, in your product build. Can you talk to the group about how, do you want to share more about this? Yeah.
Yeah, so then the solution, back when I was running Care, we had bought I think like 12 companies, and one of the ideas that we had was a business plan I wrote called My Adam, which is my youngest son's name. And then My Adam, the idea there was, again, early coordination, telling me about the weather automatically, reminding me what I needed to pack for the day for him, all that. But the technology wasn't ready. So we put it on ice, and when I saw the technology about completing tasks, I said, well, what if there was an assistant that actually did it? And so the solution here is exciting in that we're not changing the everyday in the sense that, we've got app overload, right? How many of you use at least 3 or 4 communication mediums now? You don't even remember, was it a text? Was it an email? Where's that document? And it's just too much going on, right? And that's just communication mediums. It's not food delivery, it's not grocery delivery. There's just so much going on for families. And then all the activities to have the kids be competitive, to keep track of it all, right? And that the schedules don't often match up. And how many people we need to coordinate with now, with all the different activities, and that many families piece together care because it's just on the rise. It's expensive.
Where I was headed was just to help the room understand a little bit more about how Bright has the great fortune of working with you. Can we back up a little bit and talk about how this deal came together?
Yeah, very, very fortunate to have run into Lenore. So in August of last year, we had just launched the Stealth Alpha, and we weren't ready to talk about OHI. And Reshma Sujani, who ran Girls Who Code, who I knew for many, many years in the space, was launching a new .org called Paid Leave, paidleave.org. And so she came over and said, listen, I know you've been running care for a while. Could you help with the advocacy around paid leave? And of course I said yes. And she said, well, what are you working on now? And I said, oh, well, it's a stealth company. And I described it to her. And she said, wait, did you know my husband's a VC? Nahal at INEAC. Mm-hmm. What's so great about INEAC and Nahal and Sophia, 4 engineers that started it, but what's so awesome is the advocacy that they have to actually share the round, because they preempted the round and then immediately introduced me to Bright Ventures and Lenore. Sophia's phenomenal.
Yes, she is.
I just saw her last night at their annual meeting that I presented to as well. And so what was awesome is that the round was oversubscribed, but INEAC actually took a step back to say, look, because they heard me say, I really want a diverse cap table. I want more women running funds. So that was really the story. And then what got me with meeting Lenore wasn't just the diversity, it's actually the building of community. Mm-hmm. That's super important for founders like myself. And so many funds that I've worked with don't present the opportunity for diverse community and a sense of belonging among founders. Often I was the only female in the room, often the only minority in the room. And so especially since being a part of the founding team and board for the Asian American Foundation, and it was at the height of the pandemic, I started to realize that it really made a difference when I entered the room and felt a sense of belonging as a founder. So that was super important to me.
Yeah, and blew my mind to watch how women came together across married, homes and partnerships to business partnerships to we just love to work together and found a way to make this deal happen. I think a group of women really conspired to do this, including Aisha, who was here. Mm-hmm. She met Sophia, and the two of them were chatting about the opportunity and got me actually incredibly excited. So thank you for sharing that. As we think about investing in gaps more broadly, right? So a huge amount of what Bright stands for is this opportunity to invest in the places where there's leaks in our commercial and social potential as a society. And I think, Sheila, you're masterful at doing that. I'd love to hear a little bit. It takes a little bit of both. As a founder, how do you discover opportunity in a gap?
Well, I always believed what Brian Stevenson often highlights, the proximity to a problem. Mm-hmm. And I got pregnant in college, and then my father fell ill, and so I was panini eater sandwich, you would call it. And that personal journey really impacted why I decided not to pursue being an investment banker or a strategy consultant. I had my own pain points to solve, and I wasn't alone. And that was really the birthing of Care.com. In this instance, after the sabbatical, for me, it was the cognitive overload and also the sense of PTS, to be honest, of just life, and everything got busy. We sold our home and then ended up taking on 2 renovations, which was pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. And I just took a pause and I said, I can't be alone with just being overwhelmed. And I just exited a company. I was supposed to be relaxing, right? So clearly there was a need, and then now AI was happening, but so many of the products that were being built was solving productivity at work and taking creativity out of humanity. And in my mind, I was like, well, why can't we solve the everyday productivity in the home that can actually help drive the economy and allow us to free up our time and be more by taking care of the mundane, everyday administrative task for families. So just like my talking about the care economy, about care makes all other work possible, we started to calculate that if we freed up 1 hour of productivity for unpaid work for working women, it's $1 trillion of GDP per year. 1 hour per day. So you pause here and you say, okay, well, yeah, I'm coming up with some sexy virtual system, but I'm really doing this because it's also helping women again overall and families to be more productive.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you're starting to help us understand that this is not just like a very real pain point that most of us can experience or can relate to, but also that there's a massive TAM. Sometimes we're building in these gaps, right? These areas that actually have been undervalued by the market. We don't have a ton of clarity around market sizing, and then sometimes have difficulty discerning, how do you build a business? Is there a business there? Can you talk to us a little bit more about how you size the gap that you're building in?
Yeah, we tend to be very data-driven. It's kind of strange to be an entrepreneur and say you crawl, walk, run. The reality is always feel like you're really running. But being methodical around measuring things in small sizes and then proving to yourself, then you earn the right to move on to the next thing and get a little bit bigger. And that's why we think about MVPs. But just two quick stories. When we launched care.com in the early days, we actually we screened Craigslist across the country. We did a lot of testing on SEM just to get a sense of which care categories to launch, which cities to launch, because we weren't going to do the Yelp strategy. We wanted to really be data-driven and figure out, okay, how are we going to take this national? Because caregiving, you could be living in California and your parents in Massachusetts, so we needed a national solution, not a local solution. And so similarly at Ojai, like I said, we interviewed 200 families, we launched a fake website. We decided in our alpha we were going to launch an SMS conversational AI. We didn't build an entire web chat experience. We actually only launched it in July because we wanted to prove out the data first and really be methodical, especially because we take it seriously around every dollar that actually is invested in us. So we want to make sure we're thoughtful around that and the spending and be deliberate about hitting certain milestones before making the big investment in certain things. So we tend to test the waters a lot and really are methodical around data, as you saw in our kind of invited you to our board meetings now too. Yeah. So that's exciting, yeah.
Yeah, it is exciting. There was a discussion a little bit earlier today about founders in our portfolio who take a data-driven approach, who design sort of every day and every effort as an experiment, and who use the outcomes of those experiments to direct the resources. And I do find that to be a through line of the founders who have the most success in our portfolio. So it's exciting to see, and always taking notes, Sheila. So exciting. Can we dive in? Because I think the group here has different, I think we all feel care, and very few of us actually understand the economic infrastructure of care. Can you help us understand a little bit more about, you mentioned that like saving an hour a day. Is there anything else we should know about sort of the commercialization of care or the creation of an economy around it that actually reflects its value?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when we launched in 2006, I often felt alone. I remember jumping in saying we were going to solve the last mile of care, and everyone thought I was crazy, right? That it was difficult. And it's kind of similar, trying to solve productivity in the home. You kind of get similar kind of feedback because why aren't you building something in SaaS? Why aren't you trying to solve something in the infrastructure layer of AI or so I tend to want to leap certain things because the problem, as you said, is so big and you can kind of see it. So, I think what's Oxfam said $10.9 trillion per year is unpaid labor that goes into care. It's unseen, and you guys probably read the recent debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump around child care tax credit. And it's sad that the conversation is really that only people who work and pay taxes really should have the availability of child care tax credit, right? Middle income to high income, and that somehow child care tax credit is going to be a disincentive to work. Well, that begs the question, do we believe caregiving is work? And the reality is it is, right? So I often, in the advocacy, Lenore, that I did for now 20 years is, like I said, care is the work that makes all other work possible. we invest in infrastructure and potholes, right, to just get people to work. And that's such a key driver of investing in public works for infrastructure. But to be honest, no one's going to leave home when they don't have care for their kids. So who cares about whether there's a pothole, right? I mean, it's more critical that they've got great care at home so they feel the confidence to be able to go to work. So we can't look at care as if it was like some personal responsibility. It actually drives the economy. Mm-hmm. And half the population, you know, with the assumptions that we have around stereotypes, could be adding to the economic growth of this country. So, and then of course, I talk a lot about paid leave, you know, that the US and Papua New Guinea are the like 2 countries without paid leave. So it's just, there are these systemic issues. I certainly, like Reshma, you know, love to join and advocate and use my voice. I remember traveling around the country with Ajin Poo to try and get the National Domestic Worker Alliance of better caregiving benefits to caregivers. So, and Care.com was one of the first platforms in that we became one of the largest gig economy. We had like over 20 million caregivers. We provided them access to social security benefits and healthcare, even before Uber, because we were around before then, so I know I'm dating myself. But so for me, investing as an entrepreneur to find solutions, I certainly advocate for policy, but I think it's a social responsibility that I just have as a social entrepreneur to just keep building solutions to solve these problems.
Yes, it sounds like you saw the need to sort of network and create connectivity around care and care.com, and now technology, what I said earlier is technology is finally caught up with you and what you recognize is needed at the family level. Is there anything else you want to say about what you think is the next frontier of the care economy? Like, what do you, go ahead.
You know, so for me, obviously, the everyday that's happening and this comfort level of really overall asking for help. I went to Melinda Gates' first ever Care Summit just this year, inaugural Care Summit. They called me the OG. I'm certainly dating myself. But what was really heartening for me is that to see 300-400 blend of founders and venture capitalists and a very diverse group of people, of faces across genders too, that was just really emotional for me, honestly, on stage, because I started to realize I wasn't alone anymore trying to like innovate in the care economy. So lots of different solutions. There's B2B solutions. You know, I know ProCare Brightwheel, for example, there are definitely SaaS solutions that have happened, but there's a lot more innovation even in financing care, different ways to do that. So what I love is that there's so many more entrepreneurs coming into the space, again, proximate to the issue, passionate, and now technology is allowing you to build faster and cheaper. So we're able to actually experiment with innovations even faster. So that's what I'm excited about.
And just a little bit more, if you can, on why this was the right time for OHI as a solution.
So it's not, as an entrepreneur, especially, this is my 4th company, I don't go into it thinking I have to build an AI company. You know, when we went into Web 1 and it was how to save money for college, it was the largest loyalty program. We built You Promise. I don't know that I was sitting there going, I had to build a loyalty program. I was one of the early team members at You Promise. You know, and then of course Web 2 with Care.com. And now we're in sort of AI. So for me, technology is really a solution that serves a real problem that's out there. Timing does matter, because there have been moments, I remember Xochi and Michael Birch, who founded, I think, Bebo and then sold it as a social media platform, became good friends, and they invested in Care.com early because they had launched a concept like Care.com years before, but it was too early. And the reason for that is because we had to go through Monster.com to feel comfortable with people services. Oh my God, do you guys remember that? And then you had to go through Match.com to feel comfortable as adults to find dating online, and now people get married all the time through that. My kids certainly did. They found each other on Hinge. And then Then care was ready. So the market also has to be ready, not just the technology. And because the technology was in front of me, I've known this problem. And then, of course, the curiosity of ChatGPT, right? Mm-hmm. But the one thing I will add to is not only methodical in data, but really thinking about the psychology of trust that you have to build with users. So how many of you have an assistant? Right. So when you first have an assistant and they start with you, I don't know that you give all your information to your assistant. Don't you like train, try, like give a little bit at a time, and then as you develop a relationship, more and more information that you can share. It's very similar. We kind of approach the rollout of Ojai in a very similar manner to gain that trust and also train the assistant and to develop that relationship with our users. So it's not only the market readiness, but it's also thinking about specific users and how do you build that level of trust. And that's something that we learned at Care.com for many years.
Awesome. I want to show you some of the work of Ojai and how the product actually functions, because there's such a big promise here and so much potential. So I think it'd be great to dig into some of the reality of today. Come up and play the video.
Yeah, so I have two videos. Just one super fun. It'll just give you a sense of our marketing. And it's just showing the email one. And then a second one, which is our integration with Instacart. So, okay, we can go ahead and play the email one. So this concept is, we heard from users, especially moms. Schools aren't user-friendly, and think about that. They send you 11-page newsletters. Yeah. And you're supposed to find something in 8 font hidden somewhere of some important date. And so you realize there's a lot that you miss as a parent. And it's stressful because on top of that, not only are you juggling multiple communication mediums at work, with Slack, with Telegram, with WhatsApp, with text, with email, and how many email boxes do you have, right? It's just a lot going on. And then you're supposed to, on top of that, pay attention to all the personal stuff that's coming in from activities in school. And we have had so many use cases where the mom's like, I went to swim class and it was so embarrassing. Swim lesson had ended, and I rushed from work, and all these like stories. So that was a really important use case. So we scan emails, we summarize them, we put them in the calendar. Seems like something super simple, but AI's phenomenal at solving that problem. Again, in the second video we can play.
My daughter, Sia, her hair was done for picture day because of this. That is one of those things that's easy to miss in those newsletters.
I'm Filipino, so we did Filipino adobo sample. And it really does work. It's super easy. And it's really a click of a couple buttons. And Instacart's so excited. Our members are the highest average order value that they've ever seen because we make it so seamless and easy for families. So more to come. And it's holiday season, so we're going to have some surprises with really delightful features that we're integrating now in time for the holidays that will really help families. So we're excited about that.
Thanks for walking us through some of the practicality. I think when you see like, oh, it can build the grocery list, like that, real time savers. I want to just take a step back and benefit from, you've referred to yourself as an OG. There's a ton of wisdom and respect in that. So I want to just see if the room can benefit from any leadership lessons. Any key lessons learned for founders in this room, or even listening to the podcast that you want to share?
One of my philosophies, and I was younger, I just graduated with my JD MBA, and I was a terrible manager, you promise. And I had my colleagues, I got promoted at the age of 29, and my colleague CTO, CFO, pulled me aside for lunch and kind of said, you're really hypo, didn't even know what that meant at the time, you're really high potential, but no one wants to work with you because you're just overly demanding. But what I realized, and this is why diversity matters, is I had assumed I had to be a tough manager in the workplace because my role models were men. There were very few women to look at, and somehow to mimic and to be respected, I felt like I had to get to work to be tough. But yet my nurturing side of being a mother somehow I couldn't bring to work. And through the years, I've started to realize that authenticity is really what matters. So I started to create a philosophy called be intense in outcomes, but be chill with people, right? And that and often I was just speaking at Harvard last week to a bunch of students and giving them life advice that, a young woman of color had asked me the questions like, how do you bring your whole self to a situation and not look like you're either shy or meek or, and I gave her this example. I said, it's funny because when I'm at home and let's say I'm on the phone and my boys are interrupting me about, can I play a video game or like distract me when I'm on the phone to do something that they're not supposed to be doing. Why do I give them a tough look? And I can be that person, but then at the same time, I'm also the same person that can hug them and kiss them goodnight. Really warm and friendly and nurturing and embracing. And I think somehow we have these thoughts in our head that we have to be just one way, rather than bring our whole self to whatever we do. And so putting those things together, I often use a phrase about authentic boldness. And so much of leadership is just bringing your whole self and that vulnerability that actually is the strength that people look for. And so I've had the pleasure and honor of working with people now across 3 companies. And we keep working together because there's just this mutual respect and this authenticity that we have, and also respect around our families, our life phases, and just accepting of that. And it's interesting is in my leadership journey, in all my companies, I'm getting more and more, and I use the word intimate, and it's kind of strange to use that. I'm getting more and more intimate and vulnerable with my teams, and just that comfort level. Now, maybe that's age, but I think just my leadership style has really evolved to just be more of myself.
I so appreciate that. I can't think of a more elegant embodiment of what we hope to support founders in pursuing their ability to lead from your strengths and lead from who you are. Sheila, thank you again for your extraordinary leadership in general and for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That concludes this episode of Market Makers. Huge thanks to Sheila for sharing her insights on innovating in the care economy and the practical approach that OHI takes to leadership, authenticity, and wisdom. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with others who are passionate about leveraging technology to unlock opportunities in our economy. Follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn to stay connected and hear more from top innovators and leaders. Thanks for tuning into Market Makers. I'm Lenore Champagne-Beirne, and thanks for joining me in celebrating all of the innovators who are closing gaps to innovate and create new market opportunities for all of us.